I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and the NFT debate is a hot item within not only the comics industry space, but really everywhere. It's kind of a new idea. I think that a lot of people on the streets, normies that may not be a part of like the technical or technology-based like subcultures, are just getting and trying to wrap their heads around. And today I wanted to bring in an expert. Here's Tom. He's worked in a Bitcoin mining facility. And then we're also going to have Eric Canete, who is an artist who's obviously interested in the space of NFTs, what they might mean. Specifically, we're going to talk about the environment, because apparently there's a lot of information out there. A lot of people are going kind of off the deep end, and we want to add a little perspective to maybe what this all means. How are you doing today, Tom?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me. I've been a fan of your show. I think I found you about 7-8 months ago, and I check out your YouTube channel when I'm at work, occasionally when things slow down. So I'm excited to be here.
I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. Obviously, Eric, you were on the channel last week. We talked a little bit about NFTs, but we're going to get a little more deeper into it. And I'm glad you could make it. So, Tom, you used to be you worked at a Bitcoin mining facility. Does that mean that like you were on the side of a mountain, like trying to get some metals? What's a Bitcoin mining facility?
Your typical mining facility now is just like a warehouse with giant racks of these specialized computers that have like 12 graphics cards attached to them, and their sole purpose is to do proof of work consensus, which is basically they are using computing power to solve in a group together, and these facilities actually group together on virtual pools to try to increase their hash power in order to be the pool that gets rewarded for finding the next block on the blockchain and validating all the transactions and adding it to the blockchain. If you walked into one, it's just the sound of fans, maybe whatever else they're using to keep the facility cool, as we kind of spoke earlier about. You're a little familiar with what that would entail. There's not much else. A lot of spare parts, a lot of cables.
There's a lot of energy consumption going on, though. You've got all these.
Correct. For Bitcoin and for proof of work blockchains. And what I want to get into a little bit later is the difference between a proof of work blockchain and a proof of stake blockchain, which a proof of stake blockchain does not use anywhere near the type of energy that a proof of work blockchain uses. Okay. And it's like having your computer on your desk right now, that we're like what we're doing. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the blocks are added to the blockchain completely different. The coins are not they're not mined, they're minted. And I want to get into that because a lot of the NFT blockchains and marketplaces are not actually on a proof of work blockchain. They're on a proof of stake blockchain. One of the NFT marketplaces that I use to buy NFTs is called Wax, and it's on a proof of stake blockchain. So it's actually not high. It doesn't consume a high amount of energy. Now, a lot of the projects are on the Ethereum blockchain, which is the second largest blockchain behind Bitcoin. And
I believe that's where the $1 million Wonder Woman original art that went up, that's kind of got everybody buzzing around the industry. Right. I mean, DC Comics put like a stand down order to their artists saying, do not sell things NFT because of those transactions.
Correct. So Ethereum is proof of work still, but there's a huge update coming in the next 7 to 8 months, in that a lot of these people who are all upset about the energy consumption for NFT don't realize, because it's an education thing. And don't get me wrong, it took me, oh my God, 3-4 months to get my head around Bitcoin, just Bitcoin. Now we're talking about Ethereum, which is a supercomputing network with, a million nodes, or I don't even know how many, around the whole world, and it's a base platform for decentralized applications. So so anyways, when they originally came up with the code, it was a proof of work, but they're moving away from that. And there's a whole big drama between the miners and the developers now, because the miners are making the most money they've ever made, ever, mining Ethereum right now, because it processes the transactions. So I watched a guy mint an NFT just to show people how to do it on YouTube. He had to pay $89 just to mint that NFT, because the network is so congested, because everybody wants to use it. And what's happened is the popularity of Ethereum has outgrown what the network is capable of at this moment. This happened last time. This happened last time in the 2017 bull market, when CryptoKitties came out, which was like one of the first NFTs. It slowed the network to an absolute halt, and it was astronomical to even just send Ethereum from one virtual wallet to another virtual wallet. So right now the fees are fluctuating. If you want to use a contract, an Ethereum smart contract, it can cost anywhere from $50 to $500, which if you're doing something like creating an NFT, or maybe just swapping one Ethereum token for another, the decentralized applications usually mint their own tokens, Ethereum tokens, and people speculate on them. So if you want to swap one token for another token, it can cost you upwards to $250, $500
for a transaction fee.
For a swap on a decentralized exchange. Now, if you go to a centralized exchange, which is more risky to keep your funds on, and you have to fill out a lot of information, you're not going to pay those kind of fees. But if you want to just use your MetaMask wallet, which is a wallet for cryptocurrency that installs into your web browser, your Google Chrome web browser, and just use that to do a swap on a decentralized exchange, it can be very expensive. So we're all waiting for this update, and which is going to be good for the environment and good for our wallets and good for the platform, because it's also going to allow for more network traffic. And the miners are trying to prevent this from happening. They're threatening the developers that they're going to 51% attack Ethereum, which it's when you take control of 51% of the miners on the network, then you can double spend, or you can do anything you want on it. But usually you can only get away with it once, and then you're out of luck. And also it's extremely expensive. So if someone were to 51% attack the Bitcoin network, it would take $79 billion. So I'm not sure about Ethereum, but
so let's kind of dig into the environmental impacts. I think that's what's really got everybody up in arms and creating this debate. Eric, obviously you are a comic book artist. This is something that you're interested in. I imagine that you would like to be able to free trade your works, maybe sell your wares here and there, but you probably don't want to be, burning up a rainforest while you're doing it.
Sure.
What were some of the numbers that got you a little bit concerned? And we'll let Tom kind of provide some clarity or some perspective to maybe some of the numbers that are out there that have concerned you.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's been, Twitter being what it is, they really have a tendency to sort of like, in the most, I think it's a very pointed way to whittle down a particular article and point out a specific one that is naturally very, very alarming, truthfully very, very alarming. One of those is there's a Medium article actually right now written by the author, and at one point CryptoArtists, I don't know if they're still participating, but there's a fellow by the name of Mimo Atkin, and I think he used to have a visitable website in which you can input data from any minted NFT to find out exactly the CO2 emissions and the energy expenditure based on it. I think I'm capturing that pretty generally, but not necessarily specifically. So forgive me. So anytime that I see somebody come at me, they always say, they point to two things. That one is the predominant one. And naturally, when you see those kinds of numbers, contrasted to sort of a more understandable daily use from like driving to like computer use to like airplane, airplane travel, it stands out. It's pretty shocking, So, and I can understand why people are so incredibly passionate about, putting that to your face and asking you, hey, have you considered this? And the thing that you and I were, the thing that we were talking about offline is people have a tendency to not flex or exercise the other muscle, which is to say, well, what else is that outside of the things I have a common understanding of, not the least of which the tool by which they're putting this thing to my attention, which is Twitter. And I go like, well, yeah, it's kind of weird that you're on that high of a horse when you're attacking me with a tool that's probably doing more of that damage that you're accusing me of.
Yeah, it's hard when you work with Twitter and you're talking, what are the 240 characters to provide a baseline argument so it's just normally just one snippet from the article, likely to be the most damning or controversial part of it, and throw that in your face rather than any type of perspective, or what does it mean in the bigger scheme of things.
To some people, it's enough that you read. I mean, to their credit, some of these authors who are writing these articles are incredibly extensive in by which they give you the data that they've gotten. Now, keep in mind, it's just data. They're giving it to you to say, hey, here's what it is, and here's its possible environmental impact. Now, depending on what your position is, you'll never get through that entire article, because most of the time, as I've quoted and I've screenshot it myself, I point them to the part where each of those authors have explicitly said, this is not a jab at the artists who are doing this work. This is actually just, let's bring awareness so that we can find something that's so much more sustainable for us so that we can continue to do this work. But again, the internet being what it is, it rarely goes into that space. It takes the most the sexy part of the article and throws it at you and saying, like, look what you're doing.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think one of the things that we've seen was, I think over the lifespan of an NFT over 15 years, that it could use, like, the energy consumption could be like as much as the entire country of Argentina. I think that's the big one that was out there. Now, Tom, that is just taking one NFT on a computer, but they're not really stored or held like that, correct?
They are on the blockchain. If that's what you're asking, they're minted onto the blockchain. They are permanently on the blockchain. But in terms of the energy consumption on that one specific NFT, I guess it would only consume energy if it changed hands. So if you sold it to another individual and that transaction now has to be,
I believe they were trying to say like the warehouse, but there might be 50,000 NFTs in a warehouse, correct?
Not, I mean, they're in the cloud. They're on a blockchain, so they're not in the warehouse.
I got
explain it to us like we don't know what we're talking about.
The energy consumption is just supporting the network. It's the keeping it up and running, keeping that next block coming.
But that energy consumption isn't supporting one NFT. It's thousands.
No, it's just supporting the whole network. Yes. The whole network, not that one NFT. Yes. So that makes me wonder if that's how it read on the article. I don't know.
I don't know if that's. I think that's how it's extrapolated, right? Again, depending on the user, they're going to pull away from it what they think that it sounds like and radicalize that.
Can I say something? We're talking about a very disruptive technology, very disruptive. And that means it's made a lot of enemies. It's made a lot of enemies since when it was just Bitcoin. We're talking now it's disrupting everything. Well, not everything.
When you say disruptive, you're meaning there are stable parts of the economy, things that people have been working in for years, maybe the energy sector, art sector, just money exchanges. And now we have another part of it.
Yeah, like Elon Musk is disrupting the automotive industry, how computers, the internet disrupted brick and mortar stores. The same thing is happening now with finance, with money, with art, and how we perceive ownership and this it's a whole digital economy that's been birthed, in the past 10 years, and it's evolving naturally over time. So, and that's the thing. So there's a lot of people out there, banks, very rich, powerful people that don't like Bitcoin, that don't like what's going on, and they are looking for every which way to attack it. So this energy consumption thing, I don't know if everything has been described, and that some of these writers and these people that are upset about the energy consumption have been educated enough to be able to really seriously write professional articles discussing it. So yes, Bitcoin uses a lot of energy. Ethereum uses a lot of energy right now. I'm not saying that it's good for the environment, but we're talking about something in Bitcoin's case that could end up replacing the dollar as the world reserve currency. And
And that's why it's so disruptive, because there have been a lot of people that have made a lot of money, whether it be in different amounts of industry, and this is changing the way people could think about a world economy and the way goods and services are traded between nations. Now there are a lot of people making money on the way things work right now. This is a game changer. Not even potentially, this is going to be a game changer, and there are people that are being left behind that have a lot of money and a lot of influence, and they were going to do whatever they can to maintain their place in that market and keep their spot, right?
Right, and that goes for the United States. We have a lot of advantages in the world because the dollar is the reserve currency. So there's a lot of politicians that don't like Bitcoin. There's a lot of politicians that are more libertarian minded, okay, that do like Bitcoin. So, but yeah, we have not yet seen the full scope of the drama that's going to come from this technology. But all the energy that Bitcoin uses, in perspective, if it is going to be the world's reserve currency, is it justified for the amount of energy that it uses? And if we only have like right now there's 4,000 different cryptocurrencies and they all have different algorithms and stuff. But if we end up with one true digital currency, which is Bitcoin, and as a store of value and for transacting, and then we have a couple of decentralized application cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and Cardano that are proof of stake that don't use that type of energy, and we have all these amazing platforms that are on them. I think it might be justified. I mean, especially with all the jobs and it's going to create a lot of new jobs and create a lot of new revenue for artists, for lots of people. And I don't think there's no going back at this point. Anyways, there's no way you can stop it. It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys remember BitTorrent back when we were younger.
Sure.
Did they ever stop BitTorrent? Sure, you get smacked on the hand. Hey, you downloaded something that you shouldn't have downloaded, but they never stopped it. It still exists. And when it's something like peer to peer, and you can just download it on your computer, there's no way to stop it.
For sure. For sure. And
So, Eric,
I want to help I wanted to help emphasize what Tom said earlier, in which to say that there is value, at least to, I mean, it might not be inherently evident to us right now because we're existing in such a way that our finances have been, as it has been historically, the way we've been dealing with it, right? Cryptocurrency is coming in here and saying like, hey, that weird spike in the L in regards to them, printing all sorts of money that ultimately doesn't have any more value. Cryptocurrency is disrupting that centralized concept. And I, for one, am a huge proponent of it. So to Tom's point, is it worth it? Time will tell, but just if you have an allergic reaction to that sort of free printing of money, which is basically me going to my printer over there and be like, I want $500 bills coming out of it, this is quite possibly a very logical solution to that.
Yeah, I mean, every time we have a crisis now, whether it was the 2008 crisis or the pandemic now, the government's only solution is to print more money.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's devaluing the dollar at a very rapid pace. I think in Trump's last year in office, the dollar lost 25% of its value. And now Biden just approved a 1.9 trillion stimulus bill, which is going to cause even more inflation. So people are getting scared
Yeah.
because they don't know where to keep their money. If you keep it in the bank, you're losing purchasing power. So this is why the stock market is so disconnected from the reality of our world. The economy is dead because the velocity of money, which is the money, how fast money changes hands through one business to another, or one person to another, is way down. And I don't think we've actually seen true inflation yet. It's gonna come out like a ketchup bottle. You know, when you're trying to get the ketchup out and it's just not coming out. Well, the Federal Reserve isn't happy with the inflation numbers that they're getting, even though they're printing all this money, and they're like, why aren't we getting inflation? So they keep printing the money out. And I think when we get back to the new normal, whatever the new normal is, and we can actually go places and do things, go to the theater, go, to restaurants, go to baseball games, everyone's
Vacation.
been go on vacation. Everyone's been stuck inside their home for so long. There's going to be this explosion of commerce because everybody's going to want to get out there and buy stuff. And I think we're going to see the prices of goods and services go way up like we haven't seen. And I think Marvel and DC have kind of gotten ahead of that and already raised the price of their comics to another $1, which is what they did kind of shortly after the 2008 crisis, which I think that was when they went from $2.50 to $3, if I'm not mistaken, and then shortly to $3.50, I think. So at the cost of everything is going up. So people are moving their money into assets like stocks and cryptocurrencies to try to at least maintain that value or grow that value. And that's why the stock market keeps setting record highs, even though the economy is dead.
That's a lot.
I'm sorry. I'm very passionate about this stuff.
That's awesome, Tom. That's so awesome.
I appreciate the perspective that you're giving us. Now, Eric, we were talking earlier, and you have some numbers that people out here on Twitter, and they're adding to the discourse on Twitter. They're going out there and tweeting, they're retweeting, they're sending all these articles out and pictures and all this stuff. Now, there's energy consumption in all that too, correct?
For sure. Yeah. And I'm only picking on this one particular article by the author that I was talking about earlier, Mimo Acton. And is it Acton? Acton. And the top line, the first numbers that he lands on are profound, right? And it's shocking, not necessarily because it was his intention. It was to give you the information. If you don't know anything about it, it's like saying, I've never seen a dinosaur before. And the first time that you actually see a dinosaur in real life, you're like, holy cow, that's alive. I think that's what the statistic represents, right? So when he gives you that article, or when they give you the article, you're kind of like, oh, that's really shocking. And that number, I think, and people can go back into that article, is something along the lines of the energy usage on one NFT, and I think one minting of an NFT is something along the lines of 340 kilowatt hours, right? And the emissions are along the lines of like 211 kilograms of CO2. You read that and you're like, I don't know what that means. Now, near the bottom of that, he starts giving it to you in practical, real life analogies, which is automobile costs, airline travel, and so on, And now you start seeing like, oh my gosh, that's going to keep my car running for X long. That's the month-long bill of my house in the United Kingdom. I think that's where they're from. And, it's like, wow, that's really profound. And I'm like, that's good information to know. Now you put that into somebody who doesn't quite have context in how they conduct their day-to-day life. And especially in this case, it's Twitter, and they start throwing you that article to say, hey, have you ever considered that if you were to mint an NFT, these are the costs of it? And it's weird to try to hold a mirror up to people and go like, hey, have you ever considered that you also are lending your name to something that is costing quite possibly so much more in those numbers that you're throwing out? So I did loose math, and I can give you all the where I found this information. One of which is a tiny bit, I'd say prehistoric, a little bit dated. So Twitter has an average tweet per day around 5 million. at current. I think that's a 2019 number, right? One tweet is about 90 joules, right? Which equates to about 0.000025 kilowatt hours. That doesn't seem like a lot, but you multiply that by 5 million, right? That comes out to about a little over 12,000 kilowatt hours. In contrast to the energy usage for one minting of an NFT, which is around 340. Okay, and as far as like CO2 usage, right? I have it down here to like 10 metric tons, which is about 10,000 kilograms of CO2. Again, in contrast to an emission from a minting of an NFT, somewhere around 211. So everything is like, you have to contextualize it, not just in the concept of that piece of data, which again was not meant to be weaponized, right? To how you're conducting yourself as an individual when you do weaponize it, right? To go after artists. And the heartbreaking part is, if you look through that entire article, if you get somewhere near the end of it, the artist explicitly says, hey, I'm not pointing at the artist and putting blame on them. This is simply to say, here's what it took. And I wish people would come to an understanding of that and then flex the other part of their brain, which is like, okay, let me get this in context of something else.
Can I tell you why I don't work anymore at a mining facility?
Sure. Yeah.
So we moved to that new warehouse, and we didn't really take into account how many miners we could actually plug into the electrical grid to mine Bitcoin. And it became very evident, like within a few months after we had gotten a lot of miners hooked up, that we couldn't hook up anymore because it would short out everything, and that was it. So we had rented a space that was too big. Also, Bitcoin had kind of gone into a bear market at that point, and the our energy bill wasn't enough to. It was too high for the amount of money that we were making, so we were basically in the red. So we had to stop. And where I was going with this is a lot of these mining facilities, just through the free market economy and just being smart, they have moved to areas around the world where energy is cheap in terms of it's either hydroelectric or some sort of green energy where they can maximize their gains. That with if the energy is the cheapest there and it's green energy, then they can keep more Bitcoin and sell it on the market and make more money. Yeah. Now there are some parts of the world where energy is subsidized by the government. And it does hurt the environment because they don't have green energy. It's just cheap there for some reason. But a lot of those governments don't like the fact that people are using their cheap electricity to mine Bitcoin to make themselves wealthy. So they've either banned mining or made it harder for mining there. So
I can send you a couple articles, Wes, in regards to like exactly how much clean energy, and then the data is inconclusive of how much clean energy is ultimately being used to mine cryptocurrency. However, it stands to reason what Tom was talking about, which is you go to the place where it's cheap.
They'll migrate naturally to the places where there's clean, cheap, effective energy.
Because it's financially beneficial to them.
Yeah, the clean part is inconclusive, but definitely cheaper energy.
Yeah, cheaper. Yeah. I mean, there's certain parts of the world. To be fair, there's certain parts of the world where energy is very clean and very cheap. Iceland is one of those places. Because they have a lot of geothermal energy. So,
for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to it's hard to say. I know that like 1 year the miners consume about as much energy for mining Bitcoin as like 5 million households in the US. But again, there's no NFTs on Bitcoin. And the point that I was trying to get to is Ethereum will not be proof of work for very much longer. It's going to proof of stake. And then the energy cost is coming way down.
It'll be much more energy efficient.
Right. So, it's going to use a lot of energy for another 6 to 8 months, but eventually it won't be consuming the type of energy, and this will be a moot point. It won't be something to worry about anymore, any more than Twitter is, I guess. Correct. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So Tom, you've been dealing on NFT markets and you have some time in these markets. You said there's some volatility just naturally built in. Whereas people, maybe they get a little skittish on the traditional markets. They start moving over, to this new market. So there is some volatility. Right now, we're seeing a big swell. We're seeing like Wizard World is getting in on NFTs, and we've seen Marvel getting in on NFTs, and DC's about to get their own their own policies, and everyone's kind of jumping in. That has obviously created a swell in the market and a demand for the materials, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Even the NBA has NBA Top Shot. I don't know if you've seen this.
Yeah,
and
we have
digital moments. And there's some of them like LeBron James moments.
They're like GIFs or something, right?
No, it's like
someone dunking.
It's kind of like a 3D cube. You click on it, and then it takes you into the play, and it has multiple camera perspectives of that super awesome dunk or 3-point shot at the buzzer, and and it's real moments from real games. And I can't believe the demand. It is unbelievable.
Sure.
They usually drop like anywhere between 60,000 and 35,000 packs, and there'll be like 300,000 people trying to get these packs to get these moments.
It's a collectible, effectively, right, Tom? At the going price of whatever. Are they dealing in Ethereum over there or no?
No, and that's the thing. This is another blockchain that's more in-house. It's more controlled, and it's on a proof of stake network. It's not a proof of work. And that's the thing. When these people get so upset about the energy consumption, I don't think they realize which NFT is on what platform and what kind of consensus algorithm it's running. So they're getting upset over something that they might not need to be getting upset about, basically. So, but yeah, the NBA is it's a worldwide sport, and there's just a lot of demand for these. And I bought a $14 pack on there, and I turned it around. I sold all of the cards, or whatever you want. I call them cards. They're moments, and I made $350 off of it. But how long is this boom going to be what?
How many millionaires are we going to make out of comic book artists? That's
and that's the thing. Like, what NFTs are going to retain their value, and which ones are not? And because we're in the beginning stages of a bubble, I think, and it's going to pop, and then some of the NFTs will retain their value, and some won't, and they're all going to probably come down in price at some point. But I don't think we've even come close to reaching the peak yet. We haven't seen. I think this could get really crazy.
But Tom, I don't think we've even got our heads around what can be an NFT as far as a digital collectible.
We were talking earlier, and I wish we had like a lawyer on the show, because like you brought up when we were talking off camera about can I take a CGC graded Amazing Fantasy and scan it, make it an NFT, and put it on the blockchain. I don't think you can do that, but maybe you can. I have no idea, because I'm not a lawyer. I didn't go to law school, but a lot of the
there
NFTs.
There are only so many Honus Wagner baseball cards out there. They sell for millions of dollars. You own it. Why wouldn't you want to make it an NFT, and you could have the one digital printing essentially of that card?
That's the
it's
gray
not
space.
Gonna last forever.
That's
right?
the gray space legally that people are sort of like. That's the reason why, in this case, comic book publishers are asking people to pump the brakes until they sort of wrap their mind around where their rights are. And I think it makes a lot of sense, right? They have to do that in order to protect their IP until they have a better understanding of it. Now, if you're an artist that only sees your potential to earn, you go like, that doesn't make much sense to me. So you're inherently biased, right? But I don't know. I look at it as a pretty simple. I am one of those biased artists, and I look at it as a simple transaction of like one-offs. That's not any different than if I were to go to a convention and sell those things, to which they had historically sort of turned a blind eye to, and then now they're saying, actually, no, stop doing that, and potentially prevent all artists from being able to sell their pages because it belongs to them in concept. So that's the painful.
They paid for the work.
I think it's more about they want a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
It's their licensed character, but it's your drawing.
Yeah.
there's going to be lawyers
We're
to
seeing-
hash this whole thing out.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of writers coming out condemning this, obviously, because they have, in their minds, less skin in the game. But hey, listen, if you're Scott Snyder and you sent your initial draft of the debut of the Court of Owls, one of the biggest Batman villains to be introduced in modern history, and you send it over to Greg Capullo and he sent you something back with notes on it, I'm making an NFT. That is one of a kind something that you could probably sell.
That would be so cool.
I think it's just a matter of like, I don't know. I can't account for every writer or every creative person in the field that's not, that doesn't have a visual stake in the game. I think a lot of it is like you just leverage the things that will have an seemingly inherent value. If there is one thing that I can highlight in this whole thing is people are losing track of the fact that this is more of a collectability concept to this than an original art concept, right? The original art portion is inherently built into that collectability. But I think the thing that we need to highlight and sort of make bold is a collectability market. And it's up to you as a creative to be able to say, I know how to leverage that, right? So your example, Wes, that's a perfect way of doing it.
I remember when during the last bull market, which was like around 2016, 2017, I was reading about the concept of NFTs and theoretically what could be done. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be so cool. And having a wallet in your browser and all this stuff, it just seemed like kind of out there stuff. And now here it is, 4 years later.
So Tom, where is the value? I want to ask you this as somebody that's worked in there and messed with the thing. So when I think of value, and I've got a picture on my wall that's original art from Bernie Wrightson from Swamp Thing. I love Swamp Thing. That would be amazing. It would have inherent value to me. I get to show it off, but also has maintained value because it's a part of something that means something, and therefore it's collectible. Now, if I had the digital version of this, I could have a digital collection that I could display maybe on a digital frame, or I guess you could have like a digital vault that maybe people can come to your website and check out. But there's something about the code and the fact that it's one-off and unique that really provides the value, correct?
Right, scarcity. It all comes down to scarcity, right? But there are actually, I think there's an NFT creator called Beeple who creates NFTs, and when you buy them, he sends you like a I don't know, like a portrait, but it enables you to portray your NFT in the physical world. Like it's battery powered, but it's pretty cool. Yeah, you can show it off that way. But yeah, it's the scarcity, and some NFTs have a real world copy, right? But some NFTs don't. They're the only existence, I guess, if the art is what the artist has, and then the NFTs that are minted on the blockchain. So if the artist destroys the physical, now there is no physical. It only exists.
Or if it's
on the
digital
blockchain.
art to begin with, and they mint the original work on their computer and they don't distribute it. I think that's where a lot of people's heads are like, you own an avatar. No, you do not own an avatar. You own a unique piece of that's verified and minted in crypto coin, and that was traded there, so it has inherent value within that, correct?
Right. Yeah.
It's a hard history to unpack, right? Because inherently what we've grown accustomed to is, oh, that's a digital file, and therefore it has no value and less value, right? And now we're saying that's actually quite the opposite. There is value in it because we're saying, yeah, you might see this elsewhere online, but you actually have the one-off that represents that it's you own it. And it's a weird thing to try to get a grasp on in a world that has been built up on your example, Wes, which is an original piece of art hanging up on your wall. It's one of one, right? I can display it in such a way that you know that it belongs to me, and there's only this many in existence as far as Swamp Thing is concerned, right? So it's just a matter of switching your brain over to go like, oh, it's as Tom put it, it's the scarcity.
Yeah, it's the scarcity, and it's in the past with the physical collecting world, you would have to find someone in the real world to want to buy the thing that you were trying to sell, the collectible, or you'd have to go back to the local comic book shop. And a lot of times
an auction house to go
an auction house,
sell it for you. Yeah.
It was it took a lot of energy and effort on your part. Now I can, with a couple of clicks of a button, I can put my NFT on the market, and everybody in the world that's on that marketplace can buy that NFT. So the ease in which
the transaction is instant.
yeah.
They don't have to pack it. You don't have to make sure and verify that it's been sent through customs, arrives, and then it's okay. And you got what you paid for to begin with. The transaction is just like that, and everybody can go in and get a piece of it.
Hey, Tom, can I ask you a question? There's an article that just came out, and we were talking about this, backstage. An article that came out that claims that the NFT market is somehow, or they're perceiving it as a pyramid scheme. And I wanted to understand where that was coming from, because my understanding of a traditional pyramid scheme is Tom starts a company. Right? It's exclusive. It's rare that he has a product that's exclusively something that he came up with. He brings on 2 people that work under him. They pay upwards to him regardless, in contrast to, correct. And not only that, there's just sales as well, right? And so on and so forth based on that pyramid. And I was trying to dig through this article to help stand up the concept. It's like NFTs are a pyramid marketplace. And I was really trying to get to the bottom of what they were saying. And I go like, I don't think I ever got to the root of it where they could see that. Now, from your, I would say intimate experience in that space, is that as legitimate as they're trying to convince people of?
Is it possible to have a pyramid scheme on a blockchain? Mm-hmm. Yes. It was done last bull cycle with a thing called Connect. Okay. And it had to do with getting, just like a regular pyramid scheme works, you get more people into the platform, and you would get more interest, it was your classic pyramid scheme.
When you say you, who are you referring to? When you say like you
other people, you would get other people
investors.
Onto the platform.
But is this from the artist perspective, or is this from the platform perspective?
Well, it wasn't an NFT platform. BitConnect was. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but it was a classic pyramid scheme just on the blockchain.
Got it.
And it involved you keeping large amounts of Bitcoin on there and getting all this interest, unrealistic interest. It should have been a red flag right from the beginning. Like, how are you getting this much interest? Mm-hmm. And the more people you got into the platform through referral, I think the more money you would make. Don't quote me on this, guys.
That's fine.
And everything that I've said here, not financial advice, but but basically I don't know, maybe possibly there would be a way to make a pyramid scheme involving NFTs, but I would not say that NFTs in general is a pyramid scheme. No, it's just speculating on an asset, a digital asset that's scarce. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. But can you somehow, if you're a pyramid scheme expert,
an NFT into a pyramid scheme?
Yeah, I'm sure it's possible.
Right? What you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that an NFT can be a pyramid scheme potentially, but it is not inherently one, right?
Right. It's not inherently one. It would have to have some sort of financial scheme where they were like, the more people you got onto the platform, and the more NFTs they bought, you got a cut, and then the person above you got a cut, and the person above you got a
right.
Big, and you know how
absolutely a traditional pyramid. The reason why I think people are reacting in such a way, because some of these NFT platforms are by invitation only, one, curated two, and I think that sort of sets off a medium yellow flag with people.
See, NBA Top Shop right now, I think for a little while, because it's in beta, and this stuff is all brand new, they can only onboard so many new accounts without crashing the entire platform and having all kinds of horrible issues. I remember I had some funds on an exchange during the last bull market, just some crypto, and it was at the very peak of the last bubble, and I was trying to get the funds off. It took me 6 hours to get my funds off this exchange because the server could not handle the traffic, and it kept going down. It was extremely frustrating because I wanted to convert it to US dollars and get it get it off of there.
So you're saying that similar issue could be experienced by these platforms where
Yeah.
slowly,
Yeah, any
There's-
platform.
you know, I've seen, what do you call it? I've seen currently talking behind the scenes in regards to one particular one that are invite only, that traffic in as far as the collector has so slowed down significantly, but the invites still keep going out to these artists having expectations of selling it for X amount of Ethereum. And they're starting to realize, whoa, there aren't that many buyers for these things. Now, to that end, I go like, okay, that's almost like the version of like, dude, that sounds awesome, and you got into it, and somebody else got there before you. Somebody who was there from 2 years ago got ahead of you, and now it's not as good anymore. But I would hardly classify that as a pyramid scheme.
No,
Right?
it's just bad. It's bad timing.
Exactly.
And it's ignorance in markets, really, because you don't want to be buying at the very top of a market.
Correct.
You want to be buying as it's either going up
bottom,
or
yeah.
when it's in a bear market.
Correct.
And here's the thing: when the NFTs, I don't know where the bubble will peak, but eventually it will pop and it'll go into a bear market, and it could be 3-4 years before we see NFTs get popular again. My guess is it'll become more mainstream because it'll be easier to use.
Correct.
And companies like Marvel and maybe like I don't know if Flair is still a card maker, but like Topps and stuff like that, and other collectible companies and sports. I know the NFL and the NHL is looking into moments like the NBA Top Shot. When that becomes easier to use and more interactive, it'll probably create another bull market. And we'll see even higher prices than what we're seeing right now.
Correct.
And some of these very, very first initial NFTs, we might look one day 50, 80 years from now at them. Like you look at that baseball card you were just talking about, Wes, the one that there's only 12 in existence, you know?
The Honus Wagner.
Yeah, the Honus Wagner.
The holy grail of baseball cards.
Right. And so, some of these very first NFTs on some of these platforms, the owner has the ability to burn the NFT. What that means is you basically destroy it, and you can harness a little bit of the cryptocurrency. Some of these NFT companies are doing things where you buy the packs, and let's say you get a bunch of the same card, you can burn it, and then you get gems or some sort of like fake,
some incentive,
like online gaming.
Yeah, and then you use that to upgrade another card to like a mythic or an enchanted or something.
It's definitely online gaming.
And
I've played a lot of free games on my phone. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. I don't play as many online games on my phone, but
a lot of those free games.
But what it's doing is it's driving down the mint. So now maybe 10 years from now, 5 years from now, maybe a year from now, let's say there were 15 of these cards in existence. Now there's only 100 or 50, so
right.
it's great. We're just scratching the surface. And I was talking to my friend John from my podcast a few weeks ago, and I was like, I bet one day the physical comic book industry is going to be just like a niche collector's thing for older people like our age who still want to own physical comics that were printed.
Yes.
But all of the comics from a certain point on will be NFTs, printed to demand, minted to demand. You will have a Marvel app that's attached to this blockchain. You'll read your comics on it. You'll be able to put them on sale on the market after you read them if you don't want them anymore, or hold them and speculate on them. The whole experience will be on one app. And maybe some of the comics will be interactive a little bit. Maybe they'll have slight animations or voice acting. I don't know. I mean, it's the future, but I think we're gonna be reading most of our comics on our iPads, our phones, whatever's coming next down the line.
I'm waiting for my hologram display where I can hit the button and the comic book comes up and the pictures are actually in 3D.
I don't think we're that far away from it. I really don't.
I used to work with the government in kind of high-end technology sectors within, like, doing some intelligence work. And it seemed like maybe they were working on stuff like that. So
You just outed yourself, Wes. We're going to be in so much trouble now.
no, we're people now.
We're going to see someone come out and grab him now. Where'd you go?
I haven't given away anything yet, but so I think this has been a fascinating discussion. Obviously, we could probably talk about this for hours. Just what does this mean? What does it mean for collectabilities? What does it mean for the comic industry? What does it mean for all of our lives? You know, because things are changing, and there's, like you said earlier, Tom, there's really no coming back. You know, turning the clock back. We're moving forward. Just, you know, are we going to do it in a in an effective manner in, you know, with respect to the environment and other aspects of our life? Now, Tom, you did mention that you have a podcast, and I don't think I mentioned it actually during the conversation. You are a huge comic book fan, correct?
Yeah, I've been reading comics since 1999. I think I was in middle school. The old X-Men TSA got me into comics. And I've been I buy physical comics. I've never stopped. I have, I don't know, 35, 40 long boxes in my basement. So
That's awesome. Nice.
But yeah,
you have a problem.
Yeah, I have a problem. Yeah. I'm excited about what this means, and for this, I think this industry has been suffering for a long time, and this could be the catalyst for the next stage in the comic book industry. You know, like it could grow the audience tremendously, because it'll be right there on your phone, or right
distribution
there on
via devices is so much more convenient.
The problem I've always had with digital comics, one is there's no resale value, right? That from a collector standpoint, you don't like it, right? But I'm a reader, so I like digital comics. I have digital comics that I read on my iPad at night, you know, when I'm in bed. But I still buy the physicals because I like having the physical. But it allows for that collector aspect to be part of it. And I think the other aspect is that they price the digital comics just as high as the physicals. That's what always drove me away from digital. You know, like
the way that the market is now as far as digital, until it's a subscriber platform like, I don't know, Spotify or Pandora or whatever, where you pay a certain fee every month and you get your brand new comics and you get to bring them up, and you don't think that you own anything. You're just paying for the access to the new comics via your device, like you do with Netflix. Until we get that concept into the comic books, the way that they're doing digital now is kind of dead in the water. It hasn't had growth, and I believe in 9 years.
Right. And that's the thing. Maybe this can be the catalyst that gets people buying digital, and gets them buying it for the price that they are trying to sell it for, you know, because, you know, $4, $5 for a digital comic. I'm sorry. I'd rather own the physical. What's the point?
Well, you don't own the file.
And you don't own the file. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's what's always drove me away from digital comics. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. But
so
I love
Tom,
comics.
You have a blog and you have a website. Why don't you tell the people where they can find you if they want to check out what you have to say about comic books as well?
Sure. Pencil and Ink Reviews.
Podcast.
Sorry. Yeah, it's a podcast. We're on iTunes. We're on a few other platforms. I think Twitch and some other ones. We have our own website, pencilandinkreviews.com. I'm on Twitter. You can find us there. I do a lot of, since we haven't had time to record as many episodes lately, I'll whatever I'm reading, I'll take a picture of it after I'm done reading it and kind of do a little tweet about what I thought about the book.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we've been doing it since 2013. My co-hosts have gotten a little bit busier, their lives, they have kids and stuff. So we're trying to get back on track. We just recorded our first episode for 2021 a few weeks ago. So
That's
I'll
awesome,
be
man.
posting that soon.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I
Welcome
just need
back.
to- thank you. Just need
So
to edit
we'll
it.
definitely be talking to you and see if I can get you back on the channel. I don't want to
Yeah.
just talk about NFTs with you, but I'm sure there's some other things, maybe the technological side of comic books. We can talk about this a little bit further.
Sure, and I'll say this: I don't always agree with all of your points of views on comics, but that's what I like about your show, is because I like diversity of thought, and even if I don't agree, I respect other people's point of views, and
That's
I want to
great.
hear what they have to say about a story or an idea for a comic book. And I do a lot of creative writing myself, but it's just for fun, not professionally. But I'm always interested to hear people's thoughts on comics, because that's what's fun. I mean, I miss that experience of going to the local comic shop and just talking with a bunch of guys or girls about the storylines and stuff. And I feel like I've kind of lost that over the years, and especially now with the pandemic. So
Yep. That's
the
awesome.
closest comic shop to my house is like 5 islands away. It's in Manila. There's no comic shop on my island. There's only comic shops in one city in the Philippines. So all of my talking and conversations and interactions about comic books are essentially done through my channel. And I absolutely love it. But I know exactly
That's
what you're
awesome.
talking about. I love
That's
the
awesome.
debate and the conversation.
So do you have them delivered to your house, or do you go to that
Yes.
island? Okay.
No,
Okay.
that'd be very expensive.
That is the most expensive comic book day ever, dude.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Oh,
Eric,
man.
obviously people are going to know you as a comic book artist, but you're expanding the line a little bit. I think you have a YouTube channel that you're working on right now, and you've got some other projects. Is there anything you wanted to plug before we kind of sign off?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning it, Wes. I use the YouTube channel primarily to bring awareness to my forthcoming crowdfunding campaign for my miniseries called Arc Athena. So YouTube is definitely to engage. I only stream about once a week because I prefer to be working on that project, but it's enough so that people can come by. I engage with them, give them updates on the book, give them updates on updates on my process, give them insight to where I am as far as and also I keep it as open to that process talk. People to ask me about, whatever it is that they have issues with in regards to layout and storytelling, all comic book related stuff. And so that's what I use that YouTube channel for. Again, just to bring awareness to, I think the launch date for issue 1 is beginning of September of this year. If people would want to have more updates in regards to like a newsletter, they can go visit my website at ericcanete.com. In the upper right-hand corner is the newsletter button. You just input your name and your information there, and all of that stuff gets distributed to you anytime I put something up on the website as far as progress is concerned. So.
That is awesome. So definitely get yourself on that newsletter. You're going to want to hear about that. And I'm definitely going to have Eric here on the channel. We'll talk about it when it's about ready to launch. Eric,
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate your perspective and your time. And
Thank you.
definitely going to have you back on the channel as well. Got to get you on the aficionados.
Oh gosh, that title alone scares. Oh, this title alone scares the heck out of me. Anytime somebody says aficionados, I always get reflected. Like, am I an aficionado of anything short of like cake and cupcakes? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. Like comics,
I think
listen to the guys.
collectively, as a group, we might know enough.
Right on. Well, I'll listen to you guys and just ask as many questions as possible.
Absolutely. So thanks a lot, guys. I think this was a great discussion, and we'll talk to you all later.